I'm back. Can I be heard now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it better?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the technical problem that happens every now and then.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I think I have introduced you to the attendees before, so it is your time now to present. Please, Mr. Lim.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Lufti, and a very good evening to all the participants here. Or good morning or good afternoon to the European participants like Mr. Mimo. Okay, now look at the audience. I think that mostly from Indonesia and Malaysia. So later when we speak in English, we also allow Bahasa Indonesia lah, and Bahasa Malaysia to communicate. So please participate. Okay, terima kasih ya. Saya mula. Okay, I'm Lim Seng Boon. I'm a postdoc researcher from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. And I'd like to thank the Universitas Indonesia for inviting me to this webinar. Okay, especially Mr. Dita and my friend Mr. Bimo. And the topic of the presentation today is the right to the city. And I'm zooming into the citizen participation topic in comparing the pre and post-COVID era. Okay. So the content, first I will introduce the concept of the right to the city. Next, I'll explain what is citizen participation as right to the city. And then I'll present participation cases of the pre and the post-COVID era in Malaysia. And according to these cases, I will discuss on the possible wrong or some gray areas with the concept of right to the city and ended with a conclusion. Okay. Now, what is right to the city? This concept is very popular. It's coined by the famous sociologist and architect, French architect, Henri Lefebvre, in his book 1968. Okay, this concept now has been reclaimed more recently by social movements as a call to action to reclaim the city as co-created space. So most of the, I think, participants here are planning background or architectural background. So we are talking about a co-created space tonight, where a city space were created by all the stakeholders, including the citizens and the power holders. Okay. So in Lefebvre's conception, he mentioned that citizens in all social groups, races, genders, etc., have their rights to demand the authorities or power holders to provide fair and inclusive city living space. Okay. And tonight is actually the right to the city is very big concept. And the right is not to be excluded from centrality and to participate politically in decision making were particularly significant for the working class, meaning that when we participate, we are going to talk about the centrality of the right, centrality of the power. Okay, but we are not going to infringe the centrality of the power, but we are going to look at the differences of the social groups exist today. Okay, for example, there are many different social groups like coined by the UN report. There are 17 different social groups where these all these social groups have their different needs. So the right to the city, it is not about to infringe the centrality of the power. This is already cautioned by Henry Lebrecht. But actually, the focus should be on helping different social groups to be heard by the authority. Okay, that is the argument today. Okay. So next. Okay, I give you some example of the different social groups that exist. For example, there are 3 examples here. Urban poor women. Okay. Urban poor women, for this group of people, they are demanding their gender equality and enabling them to participate and benefit equally in society. And of course, they need their desire to improve maternal health and access to reproductive health. But this is different when you look at the indigenous people, orang asli. They have different needs. For example, they want people to respect for their culture, their language, and they want accuracy in telling of history, meaning that they are actually the landowner, and not the other latecomers that claim the land belongs to them. For example, the jungle that they are dwelling in. And these 2 groups actually has very different needs from the rich and the elites groups. Okay, this is considered the top social group in our society now. And this group normally they hold the power and the right to exploit land and workers and the overall prosperity that leads to pride in their city. So the question is how to make these different voices heard in a city and all the needs can be accommodated. It's not easy, right? So that is a conflict that we are facing. Okay, then I'll explain what is citizen participation. If you are talking about citizen participation, we have to look at the ladders of participation, the seminal work by Sherry Anston, where this ladder divided into 3 levels and 8 rungs. Normally, when the local authority provide information to the citizens, that is considered informing. And when the local authority, they're asking people's opinion, and actually that kind is consultation. But whether the people's voice being heard or being implemented by the authority, that is actually ambiguous, unknown. So when these 2 kinds of rung happen, consultation and informing happen, is actually on the tokenism level. It has not reached the level of citizen power. What we are talking now is a level of partnership and the delegated power from the authority to citizens. Okay. So to involve in the public service, we have to see the value change of public service. We're starting from the agenda setting to decision making to planning to design and so on, so forth. And this normally people involved in the delivery stage, where people come and join the program and go normally. Okay. And what we want is actually people involved in the design. Yeah, and then do together and create and design and plan together. That is what we want. Okay. So I'll explain some cases in Malaysia in the pre-COVID era. I have done a research previously in Cyberjaya Smart City. I found that the level of residents participating in the higher level of value chains of public service, for example, agenda setting, is very low. For example, here, people are not participating in this level, but in the level 7 delivery here. Okay, and compared to Petaling Jaya Smart City, I found the level is medium, slightly better than Cyberjaya. And if compared to the previous study done by Dr. Mariana in Petaling Jaya City, so the level of participating is slightly improved. So there's a sign of a grassroots movement happened in Petaling Jaya City. In combination, Cyberjaya and Petaling Jaya cases show a majority or 65% here involved in the middle process of implementation. So meaning that the people are mostly involved in the middle process, not here. And then a very minority of 5.6% involved in citizen power delegation. Here, very little. Mostly when they talk about participation or e-participation, they are referring to information sharing and sometimes consultation, but seldom in delegating power to the citizen to make decision. Let's move on. Another case is the Penang South Reclamations Project. This is a very popular contested project in Penang, Malaysia, in the south of the Penang, where they are going to build the state government of Penang are going to build 3 man-made islands. Imagine if they are going to bring sand, they're infilling the sand near the seesaw here, the coastal here. So it will surely disturb the ecosystem of the seesaw here and influencing or disturbing the livelihood of the fishermen. Okay, these are the people that it consists of one kind of the social group that we are talking. Okay, there you see, for example here, there are various protests carried on or carried before in Penang, and they brought it to Parliament Malaysia also. Okay, and the opposition leader, they also went to do some kind of consultation with the fishermen, the nelayan. But you see, when this leader, they do consultation, it seems very good. They got publicity in the newspaper, but after a few weeks later, this leader mentioned that they will support the government's project. Okay, so this case is still going on. The people's voice is not being heard yet. Okay, and also there are petitions. They say save Penang and reject the 3 islands reclamation. Okay. Okay, now we try to go to the post-COVID era. To that, as you all know, that this unprecedented pandemic of COVID-19 is haunting the world with 2.3 million deaths. That is more than the whole population of Kuala Lumpur population. Wow, meaning that there's a whole city of the people that die. It's very terrible, and its fatality rate is still increasing. It has no exception in Malaysia also. Malaysia now has claimed 872 deaths to that, and Indonesia 32,000 deaths. Very critical. Okay. So under this critical situation, Malaysia, since last March, the whole country has implemented the MCOs, so-called the movement control orders, very strict. Okay, and people are not allowed to move more than 10 kilometers from their home. And if they want to move across the district, they have to apply permission from the police. Okay, if they get their permission, then they only can cross the district or the state. And besides MCO, there are various control like CMCO or RMCO and the related SOPs. And recently, the case become more critical, and Malaysia is now in an emergency state. Imagine Malaysia now, I'm talking to you, Malaysia now is in an emergency state. But this emergency is to protect the government, okay, from any parliamentary or state legislative assemblies to meet. Okay, and until such a time that decided by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, meaning that within this period from January to August this year, there will be no parliamentary meet, and all state legislative assemblies will be stopped for a moment. Okay, so imagine under this condition, most of the participation activities were restricted. Not only the political participation activities, but also the social participation activities. Emergency ordinance, all were controlled under the Prime Minister's power, and a special independent committee to advise the Yang di Pertuan Agong. But there's one thing we have to look is the special independent community is actually not clear who consists of this special independent committee. Is not clearly stated in the emergency ordinance. That's why, meaning that the prime minister has a near to full power in this elite type of governance. Okay. Compared to such condition, people will have to go to jail in terms up to 10 years or a fine up to get Malaysia or both. Yeah. So whatever the government say now, we have to follow. Cannot say no. And that is a condition now. And it's actually what I mentioned before. This emergency ordinance protects the government. And actually, there's another case I would like to highlight here is in Kuala Lumpur Park Development Court case. This case, like the picture show here, is a big park, recreational park, where the developer want to develop it into a mixed-use development, but opposed by the city residents there. And now they won the case, but that effort was subjected to post-COVID efforts. So actually, there are cases where people's participation is sound, okay, in Malaysia, but not very many, very few only. Now we come to discussion. So what is the possible wrong with the right to the city? What I said is the current right of the citizens was under siege by COVID and the emergency ordinance in Malaysia. And it appears that participation is non-essential, macam tidak penting, and could be ignored once public healthcare is threatened. It's just like being described by the John Hoy, editor of Democracy Index. He mentioned that, you see, the question of whether the public should temporarily or surrender democratic freedoms to life. So the answer is very clear. People are willing to surrender, okay, their rights to participate under this COVID outbreak. But the problem was they were never really invited to consider. I mean, the government never really invite the citizens to consider it. Then the quality of any democracy can be measured by the questions it puts to the public for decision or guidance. And the pandemic confirmed that many rulers have become used to excluding the public from decision. I do not know what has happened in Indonesia. Maybe later you all can share with me. So Malaysia now is at this situation where whatever the prime minister and the king said, we have to follow. So it showed that how elite governance, very elite, okay, consists of the prime minister and the special committee only, not even the cabinet, okay. And it is not popular participation has become the norm, okay. So from here, this hinted that the first possible wrong, what I mean by possible wrong is carries the meaning of potential misconception or gray area, okay, that need further improvement and clarification. Okay, first, I think that the possible wrong is that the right of citizens has its potential to infringe the centrality of power. Okay, people think that they want to claim their rights, so the government they would feel that they were threatened by this kind of terms, which is very threatening to them. Okay, so this is a first possible wrong, which I think that this term carries this kind of meaning, and citizens should be turning citizens should be turning their focus to advocating different social groups rather than showing signs of violating the centrality. So I argue that the citizens should focus to advocating, to helping the social groups which are vulnerable and facing problems, and helping to bring their voices to the authority, but not showing that they want to take over the power of the government. Okay, so many have reported the impact and challenging conditions faced by those underprivileged social groups where restrictions to economic and earning activities under COVID-19 have resulted in hunger, learning and education losses, and many more health, social, and psychological issues. And therefore, citizens were suggested not to claiming their rights. That could be interpreted as forcing the authority in some conditions without contributing back to the society. So the argument here is not just claiming the rights. You have to focus on the vulnerable groups, and you have to contribute to the society. You have to co-create together with the authority, not against the authority. That is an issue I would like to bring up. But the question is how to reach an equilibrium state of such co-created space. How? Correct. And taking from the idea from Professor Fong from Harvard University, he has designed this democracy cube, and this design was formed by 3 dimensions. First is the extension of authority and power. Second is the scope of participant selection. And third is the mode of communication and decisions. Okay, according to Fong, this formation of a democratic cube constitutes a space in which any particular mechanism of a public decision can be located to address democratic governance issue. Okay, but meaning that by using these 3 dimensions and their spectrum, okay, their spectrum, there are a lot of variety inside this line. So from here, adjusting these 3 elements, we can achieve some kind of equilibrium state to solve the issue like justice, equality, okay, and so on. And participatory budgeting also can be solved through this model. Okay, how? First, you see the dimension of authority and power. There's a spectrum of authority from least authority to most authority. Okay, so they are moving. So these are 2 extreme sides where people have authority. And if in least authority, meaning that people are having great personal benefits. So what we are targeting now is somewhere in the middle. Okay, advise and consult, for example. Okay, and this dimension could be applied to supply of public service, where I think that authority supplies public services according to such a spectrum periodically to suit the local context. Okay, this is the first dimension. Second dimension is the selection of participants, ranging from more exclusive to more inclusive. So if more exclusive is all the states in power. If more inclusive, the public will be in power. That is also impossible. So what you are seeing is in the middle, somewhere, okay, mini publics, somewhere here. Okay, and for me, I link this second dimension, participants, to demand of citizens' right. Yeah, people always trying to demand to the authority to provide them the best service they can. Okay, and they have actually misinterpreted that to demand is their right. Actually, it's only halfway. Okay, I'll explain further. Okay, next is the third conception, the communication and decision mode. Okay, the spectrum is from least intense to most intense. Okay, we are targeting in the middle, where I have linked this to the contribution of the citizens. Okay, meaning that the government supplying the public service and according to the demand of the citizens. But citizen cannot be one way demanding the government to provide limits, correct? So how to pose a limit? Citizens themselves have to contribute back to the society, okay, and to the public service, for example. So according to what? According to Fong's idea here, okay, somewhere in the middle. I'll explain further. Yeah. So when people are demanding, they actually have possible wrong where I'm going to discuss tonight is the lacking a sign of contribution from citizens. people, when we hear or listen or read at the newspaper, we see that people demanding this and that, but we seldom hear or read where people contributing this and that. Correct. Okay. So I think making this right to the city concept becomes so illusion. Okay. And therefore, we have to investigate the responsibility of citizens. How? Through our study also, we have divided the citizens' responsibility into roles of citizens and characters of citizens. Okay, so there are 8 roles of citizens have been identified. For example, leaders. So I mean citizens can contribute as leaders, local champion, co-producers, solution proposals, human sensors, volunteers, or experts. These are all possible roles. If there are more science, I mean more studies, where citizens actually can contribute to the city in playing these roles, and these research are being published more and more, and that will create evidence to the authority that citizens are contributing. Okay, and they have also we have to survey on the attitudes of the citizen, where I think which is important is first active involvement, and second aware and sensitive to what is happening in and around the city. Third, independence in problem solving, not always depending on the government for resources. And fourth, should have higher education. You have more knowledge, then will allow you to have more meaningful involvement. Fifth, we must have interest in public life and public value, not only the private values or personal values. Okay, now we come to conclusion. Claiming the right of the city to the city is a promising idea that gains popularity nowadays, particularly in developing countries like us. Okay, and the social movement, for example, what we are talking tonight is citizen participation. There are many more. And tonight, citizen participation, what I would like to focus is, I think that it is able to achieve a co-created space that fulfills the needs of all social groups, meaning that we have to research more on citizen participation, okay? And research more on the contribution of the citizens and provide a proof to the authority. So the possible wrong or the gray area to claiming the right to the city could be two. First, the right to the city has its potential to infringe the centrality of power, which both citizens and the authority have to make clear. We have to make clear what is the line. We can always refer to Fong's idea, the democratic cube. Okay, and the second possible wrong, the lack of a sign of contribution from citizens poses a great challenge to building a co-created city space for all. Okay, that is my idea tonight to share with you, and these are the reference. And thank you so much for listening to my speech. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lim, for your presentation. It's a very interesting presentation. I'd like to just point out a bit of your presentation. First, you have reviewed some issues of various groups of citizens in urban context according to the UN, in which it is the basic thing that we need to understand about the citizen participation. And then you have also revisited the classic Arstein's ladder of participation, and then you have reviewed the condition of citizen participation in various places in Malaysia before the COVID-19, and you have mentioned that in some cases there are low level of participation. In some other cases there are some medium level of citizen participations. And then you move on about reviewing about the citizen participation after the COVID-19, especially after the emergency status. I have mentioned, I have one very interesting point from your presentation. The lawmaking from what I understand, you've mentioned that there is a law. The emergency status is a law in the people surrender their right for participation, but the law was enacted without consulting the public first. Did I get it right?
So, sorry, I cannot understand. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I have noted in your presentation that the emergency status is a law that make the people surrender their right for participation for their health, but the law itself was enacted without consulting the public first. So it's kind of a country.
Yeah, the current state of emergency, actually, all the political participation or social participations, they are not allowed. So could be online through the online platform, consultation activities like the e-survey forms from the government to the general publics is going on. But those kind of thing is what I say is still in tokenism level. What we want is we want to hear the people's idea in contributing, for example, the formation of the special committee group, okay, under the emergency. But there's none. When the government want to declare emergency, they just declare, okay. There's no consultation from the citizen or any other, any other outcomes which could be better than declaring the emergency. In fact, it's not really helping in bringing down the line of the COVID. It is because of the political motive could be, and tonight you are not going to talk about politics. Thank you.
Yeah, and in the later part of your presentation, you've mentioned some possible wrongs to the right to society. There are two possible wrongs. The first one is the right of citizens has its potential to infringe the centrality of power, and the second possible wrongs is the lacking a sign of contribution from citizen. We will have the discussion, the bigger discussion after the second presentation from Mr. Dita. Let me introduce Mr. Dita Trisnawan first. He is currently working as a lecturer in architecture and urban design at the Department of Architecture, Universitas Indonesia, and as master planner and principal designer for various cities and tourism destinations. He had his Bachelor of Engineering degree in architecture from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Master of Architecture with specialization in suburb and town design from University of Miami, US, and engineer or accredited engineer from Universitas Gadjah Mada and Indonesian Institute of Engineers. He is currently also a doctoral candidate in architecture in architecture and urban design at Universitas Indonesia. His research activities are in urban design cluster, Department of Architecture, Universitas Indonesia, and Research Center for Advanced Vehicles, Universitas Indonesia. We will have Dita presenting for about 15 minutes. That is until about 10 past 8 Jakarta time. If you have any questions, please write it in the chat box. You can ask in English, Bahasa Indonesia, or Bahasa Malaysia. So please, Mr. Dita.
Thank you. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear you very clear.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Lutfi, for the time. And I would like to present just a bit about the temporary spaces. And there's two terms that people use, meanwhile or temporary spaces. And I'd like to review three articles that we found on the website regarding this new normal. And these three are related to meanwhile spaces, meanwhile use of temporary spaces. And the second one is related to the new normal condition of city space. And the third one is the guidance from the Asian Development Bank related to the livable cities. So these three will actually support the presentation of Dr. Lim. So we can actually discuss more and have the discussion a little bit more rich, richer than to get it richer, to have it more interesting to discuss. The first literature would be the article that was posted by Liz Crump. This one is related to the meanwhile use in the city. And then she raised the question of should this be the new normal, the meanwhile uses in the city. So meanwhile, or the temporary uses of the space within the cities has been increasing, and these spaces tries to adapt and mobilize and to respond the citizens' needs of spaces during the urban crisis, the global pandemic of COVID. And from this, we can learn and plan and also implement the uses differently, other than the actual use of these spaces. So the practice of this deploying meanwhile temporary uses, and I try to resume the writings from her, that the emergence of meanwhile or temporary practices in the built environment has been increasing, and then it provokes new and more radical approaches to planning. And within the COVID context, pandemic context, it is evident that the rapid implementation of this meanwhile or temporary uses are rising, challenging the global trends and urban issues within an immediate, medium, and longer terms. And the question came up as the pandemic enters its recovery phase, and we begin to look to the future and what we can learn and what opportunities arise from this practice. As individuals, academics, and urban practitioners alike, we think the debate on the use and concept of this space in the cities. So this question arises, and it brings some other issues. How this space actually open new doors to visualizing, understanding, and engaging, and also developing the urban fabric and its social networks. It also brings the social and also use the value of our exchange value. So it means that the value of these spaces are shifting into different value with different perspective, of course, and then after the positive feedback of this practice, how this shifted value can enhance the civic pride, and also driving the economic growth of the cities, and also delivering more inclusive and maybe sustainable development aspects of the city. So next, when you see many spaces within the cities, the commercial spaces, and maybe business spaces, and also the many other public spaces that are empty nowadays because of the pandemic. People think, what can we do to make a difference, or to make uh, something that we can do within those spaces, within those not empty but void. Yeah. I think the word void is uh, more correct to be used to in terms of explaining that the activities within the place or spaces are not available. And so I highlight the words, it is about doing something rather than doing nothing. So uh, how people see this meanwhile uses, and then how the community able to quickly adapt and respond to the needs, to innovate, and also to address immediate needs. In terms of planning, this case has been fundamental, and then also an aspect of the community being resilient. And next one, I also captured the idea of transitional abilities of this meanwhile uses, of these temporary uses, into a longer term transformation. It means that for now, people or the communities use these spaces for one need, and then the next for the next maybe immediate terms, it will be used as a activities, and then the next one, the medium terms, can be used as another activities, and then on the long term, probably another activities that is different than the first one. So these are the variables that can be used to have it monitored and evaluate the condition of the space, and then also understanding, the transformation of the space. The second article that I reviewed is related to the planning and architecture for the new normality. It was written by Nuria Moriner, and it was posted in Barcelona Metropolis. You can find it on the web. And she wrote, the COVID-19 lockdown has made it clear that architecture and city planning do not always guarantee the right to see the sky and to feel the air and the sunshine. So this quote is quite interesting, because what we have now is not we have a confined the ability to see the nature, or to access the nature, because of the of course, because of the health protocols of the COVID-19, to limit ourselves to see people, to get out from our house, and to see other people. So the question that arose from this from her writing is that the coronavirus crisis, she thinks, is a huge opportunity to take everything that has happened in order to improve our quality of life. what if we harness it as a turning point to rethink of our way of life and our cities? So I see the the importance of resilience based on adaptability and also on capacity to generate new forms of self-organizations in the face of disruption. Uh, Miriam Garcia mentioned about that, and I think this statement is quite strong, where cities like here in Jakarta or in Kuala Lumpur or in other cities in Southeast Asia, uh, how the communities, the residents, the citizens manage the change and see how they can renew its ecological, economic, and social models. So how the people in the city can deal with that. And uh, moreover, Garcia mentioned also about uh, the hope that within the lockdown situation and we could learn about the origins of the pandemic, not just the consequences of the pandemic itself, but also the reason why it happens, why and how it spread, and we learn how to uh, promote better sustainable cities within the new normal, basically. And seeing this, the new normality that she mentioned, she also write that saying that we have begun to see what we could live differently, reducing our impact and putting life and health first. So this perspective has probably changed the how we will actually live within our cities, and then this mindset has changed how we see or how we understand the atmosphere of the city. Uh, Everything has been slowing down, and uh, the memories that we have, the interaction within the residents within the city, uh, uh, all these details, the normal activities that we did before, probably will not gonna happen again in the future. So the new normal has bring so many shifted paradigm and understanding how we live and work and within the city. As I mentioned above, uh, and related to the new normal, uh, two aspects that are quite important related to this condition is the human interrelations and also the state of belonging. And these two uh, aspects will impact the way we live in the future. And of course, excuse me. Okay. And because of the most important thing that we now think is our safety and our health. That's the first thing. That's the first thing that we need to overcome, and also to see the future and aspect that we need to really care about on this way. And how we deal with the future. These human interrelations, as you can see on the blue box, it's something to do with everyday living activities that we have, and all those activities are quite. We're not missing it, but we have that feeling of belonging, meaning that we miss being there. We're not missing it, but we're missing it basically. Uh, how this experience, everyday experience, uh, could be meaningful and memorable to our mind. I will make it quick. So there's also a statement of being confined and feeling the nature. And we are being confined. Excuse me. I dropped my phone. Sorry. Being confined and also and yet feeling the nature. So we are inside the house, being confined at home, but at the same time uh, we should be able to feel the natures. Since there's no guarantee of being close inside the house, we can be healthy. There's so many aspects that we should be able to access the natural light, ventilation, the air outside to get fresh air and then get healthy, and also uh, especially for the sick that get positive COVID-19, they need to access the nature to get the support from the nature to get better. So so it is then important to be able to redefine our very cities. So in this case, uh, what we are experiencing will change us, and it will mark before and after within the urban planning and architecture of our cities. And I would like to also bring up that we are not returning to normal, but we are creating a new normal. It means that uh, the future ahead of us it will be different, and then we will have many criteria to fulfill, to complete, or to build the models of our future in the field of urban planning and architecture. And the last one is a livable series. This is the report from the Asian Development Bank. How livable cities post COVID-19 would be would work. How the priority of making cities livable. How build back better. How we deal with the changes in transportation, education, health, cooperation, and integration within cities. These are the aspects that came up within this report. So there's also uh, guidance on remodeling public spaces, commercial, office, industrial building, and civic institutions, and many other terms that we need to deal with related to environmental problems, solid waste, and so on. And then also how the pandemic will shape the way we communicate with each other, how we improve urban services, how the infrastructure works effectively for the citizens, and then many other things, how the city built resiliency with the ability to absorb shocks and stresses due to pandemics and so on. And then the issue that came up related to this report is that the cities in developing countries, for example, mostly have a problem in 5 areas that there is inadequate urban and social infrastructure, intensified impact on vulnerable populations, ineffective ICT system, urban economic crisis at the macro and micro levels, and the fifth one is strained local government planning and management. These are the. Other than that, there's also details on how urban planning can be very important. Urban environment, urban management, how we deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, and so on. So in conclusion, some of these studies reveals that the community should take advantage of the of any opportunity to get the special of offers use. This is it could become a meanwhile uses or temporary spaces that can be just to create the difference. So and then the second one, that the citizen movement within the city during the pandemic creates different pattern, and this can be also evaluated and learned, because this is related to the limitation of space, how the access, the connectivity has become very limited. The next one is the opportunity of the informal tech sector, how people lose their job and then they start to do something else, mostly informal, selling food, selling within the streets, and also most of them are not putting the safety as first factor to consider. And then the next one, how we can use the meanwhile use or temporary uses more efficient during the pandemic. Other than that, generic or easily modified space for the public service are more preferable during the pandemic. And then the highlight of the last one is as cities on and our urban social network become more heterogeneous, fragmented, and exposed to increasingly stronger and less predictable global process and risks, that there is a critical need to rethink the planning status quo. It means that our situation has become different than before, and that needs critical thinking towards the new planning concept. More like that. So after this discussion, after this presentation, I hope that this would bring some ideas for planners, architects, and urban designers to consider new design models of more secure places, public space, in terms of its safety and health, as well as the sociocultural aspect of urban residents. There's also there should be also consideration on balancing the economic resilience and the importance of citizen safety and back to the not normal but the new normal, and also the new perspective of seeing the new normal as a new living atmosphere within the city. I think that's all. Thank you, Pak Lutfi, Pak Yogi.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dita, for the presentation. I have noted some points from your presentation. So Pak Dita has reviewed 3 articles about architecture and planning issues during the COVID-19. The first article was about issues regarding the use of temporary spaces during the pandemic. And then the second article was about some other planning and architecture issues that arise during the new normality. And one of the big point is that the COVID-19 pandemic can be used as a trigger for us to rethink on how we live and to rethink about our cities. And I have noted some unique point from that article that since we now live longer in our houses is not only our place of living, but also our place of working, schooling, and doing other things. We need to think more about the design of our houses, because we need to make our houses more, because since we are more confined to our houses, we need to think and design our houses to be better connected with nature. And then the last article was from ADB, published by ADB, titled Livable Cities Post-COVID-19 New Normal. And one of the points highlighted in that article that there are some issues of cities aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic, one of which is the ineffective ICT system. And the report also gave the framework for making cities better in the new condition. So that's the highlight from me, and we are now entering the discussion. Is there anyone to ask to both Mr. Lim and Pak Dita? Since we are in a quite small group, maybe you can ask it directly. Okay, I have one question for Mr. Lim. So, in your opinion, in the COVID-19 situation and in the emergency situation, what level of participation is possible to be carried out? And what will be the impact of the shift of level of participation?
Yeah, actually, citizen participation is a very old topic since 50 years ago. But the mood, I would say the mood of the participation is not clear, meaning that people are not demanding the higher level of participation. They just think that they demand from the government that is enough, or they participate in the program as a viewer or as a beneficiary. Okay, so actually they do not know their rights to participate. They can influence the decision, but what I mean is the mood is lacking. meaning that now relate to the COVID-19 situation now, the physical participation is limited, very limited. So we have to go online, okay? But when we see on the online platforms, let's say from the local authority in Malaysia, they are not actually asking people to give opinion, but they are survey, okay? Survey on their condition or asking their opinion, but they are not showing the sign that they are accepting the opinion and processing the opinion to that kind of level that bring that kind of opinion into the full council meeting in local authorities. Okay, so the mood is lacking. We have to bring the participation to e-participation, but the platforms are lacking. The platforms lacking in terms of e-decision making, but the current e-information is sufficient. I would say it's sufficient in Malaysia. A lot of information you can see in the local authorities' websites. And the consultation also. There are a lot of surveys. But when it comes to ask people's opinion, ask people's idea, and to implement the idea, providing with the budget to implement it, it is actually very lacking. Okay, so that is our future projects to design a better participation platform. I mean, e-participation platform to make people realize actually we can participate not only physically but through the platforms. Currently, it's through website, but it is possible through mobile apps and the command center and other social media. But it is not ready. Not like, for example, in the Barcelona, they have the platform called Decide Merit. The real merit local authority is actually launched. They have launched the platform for e-participation, and that is very successful. Apply in about 35 countries around the world, but in Asia country is still lacking. That is a good model for people to propose idea and get money. I mean, get money to do the project, to implement the project that benefited all the groups, all the social groups. Okay, not only the rich, but also the poor or the needies. Yeah, I think that's all. Thanks.
Okay, and actually, the later part of my question is, have you seen any impact of that lacking of participation from the citizen?
Lacking of the impact. I would say very few people to measure the impact. And then because I've done participation studies in Malaysia, I roughly know when they talk about participation, they look at the impact on the environmental impact assessment condition, EIA, where the participation of the people in the EIA project, environmental impact project, is also very low in Malaysia or in Sabah, Sarawak. Okay, if to answer a question, the impact of participation is very important, but is very lacking. If I understand your question, is that what you want to ask?
Yeah, actually, I mean, yeah, I do understand that to see the impact of the impact from availability or unavailability of citizen participation is another huge research, but I don't know if you maybe have some short view about some quick information about the impact. For instance, I once during my Master of Urban Planning study, I read some articles about the lack of citizen participation in Auckland that impacted in the inefficiency of programs and then ineffectiveness and inefficiency of programs. Maybe those kinds of things also happen in Malaysian cities.
Yeah, of course, a lot of projects done by authority, they are lacking of transparency. We just say here, when they do the project, they will sort of publishing an annual report. Okay, and that kind of annual report is full of good pictures and good figures. Okay, but when come to the budget, how much they spend on it, and what is the return, what is the impact, and what is the follow-up is actually not mentioned. Okay, you can find any kind of annual reports by the local authority in Malaysia. You will see that kind of trend. It's very well presentation, but lacking of actual facts in talking about the impact. Because the culture here is they do for the sake of working. Okay, they do it because they got some kind of order from the top. It is normal, not to say wrong, but it is not sufficient if lack of evaluation. But somehow people are very intelligent. I see a lot of counselors and the administrator, even the mayor are very clever, very smart. But somehow they are still lacking when it comes to evaluation part. They tend to avoid it. It is a good question, and they seems want to avoid the impact. Mostly, we are talking about the impact to be improved. You are not going to sweep those hidden things under the floor. But sadly to say, the culture is happening in Malaysia, but not all. Some are positive, some are negative, but mostly that is the scenario. Yeah, if we read at the academic reports like my publications, normally we will say we will dig out some low, like for example, the impact is a low participation, correct, in Petani Jaya, in Cyberjaya. And in your imagination, Cyberjaya is a smart city, okay, created since 20 years ago. That should be a greenfield city that is imagined to be a good living for all. Should be a good infrastructure, good green city space, and people are very active and participating. But when you look at their reports, it is also showing that kind of image. That kind of image is showing a very beautiful scenery, a lot of participating company activities, ICT commercial activities happening in Cyberjaya, and like the what the e-commerce activities is very active. Okay, but when come to local authority, local communities participation, it is lacking, and the people are not interested. So what kind of smart city is that if people are not participating and they are all depending on the government to deliver the service? Can you imagine? How smart could be a city to plan without the input from the grassroots if the grassroots is not active? Okay, that is what is happening. That's why the population of Cyberjaya today is far lacking from the planned population in the master plan 1996. The plan one should be 250,000 people. That is sufficient, could be say sufficient to sustain the city, a livable city or whatever. But today, the population there is about 50,000 only. 50,000. What can 50,000 of residents? Somehow half of it is not a permanent resident. They are day walkers. They're traveling. They work in the Cyberjaya, but they are not staying in the Cyberjaya. So about half of the 50,000 people living in Cyberjaya, what can they do to make the program by the authority become viable? If you look at the figure, you will understand that the situation is not as favorable as when you read in the government grant reports. If you want to know more, you have to read my studies. Just kidding. Yeah, I think let Mr. Dita discuss some. Pak Dita boleh sumbang sikit idea. Ada Pak Bimo ya, sila.
Yes, I think some of the cases in our country is also the same. That that the government should actually start to rethink about how they deal with the urban design and planning. Not only uh, deal with the beauty of the places, but also the use that has changed and that has shifted from before. So I think it is important for the people in in Jakarta, the citizens of Jakarta, for example, or any other cities in Indonesia, to speak up and to to get maybe the to connect and talk and discuss the importance of these changes. And it seems like the top down policy will not work, since it seems like the most of the the development uh, programs that the municipality has to be uh, has to be applicable to the new paradigm of this new normal. It seems like the governments are not sensitive enough to deal with it, I guess.
Okay. We have two questions here in the chat box. The first one is from Pak Ari. He is asking if is there any cities in the world that we can learn as case studies that are doing well in managing COVID-19 from the urban planning and city management perspective. Is there any cities that are considered quite or close to a resilient level tackling this pandemic? Maybe Pak Dita can answer first.
Yes, I read about it, and I actually have some friends who has connection to Taiwan. Uh, Taiwan as a country within a separated island from the mainland China. Uh, they do have they already run the protocols to limit people coming in and coming out from their country. So Taiwan has been quite successful in dealing with the pandemic. And what I'm afraid of is that some of the I heard that there are two cases, the new cases of the variant of the COVID-19 virus that came from England, I believe, from UK, that the citizens of Taiwan came in from overseas, from UK, bring that virus. But they have identified the person, and they have already quarantine the person, and it seems like they are successfully deal with the case. And also I have friends who used to live in, who study in Wuhan, that that there the government actually fully supply the residents with food, with medicines, without without they are going outside their house. So basically, the protocols has been applied very well, and they are very successful in pressing the number of cases in terms of urban planning and design. Of course, I haven't followed that much, but we actually can learn from Indonesian case where some businesses in Indonesia have tried to limit the consumer who come into their businesses. For example, it's like restaurants and shopping malls, how they deal with the tracing, who's coming in, who's coming out, how they also prepare with the the additional facilities to have the citizens more clean, also putting the protocols intact, and also maybe the arrange the facility to be able to serve the people, but also to keep the distance between people, not to gather too close or have the air or droplet getting out and get to other people. I think it's there's some issues on that, but I think we also need to think about the economic sustainability of the cities and the people and the country also. We cannot stay at home forever. That's why the highlights of better doing something than nothing is the spirit of dealing with this pandemic. Being happy, being optimistic, and of course with the full protocols has become a new lifestyle that we or us has to deal with in the future.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dita. Mr. Lim, maybe do you want to add something about city management?
Second question.
Okay, please.
Okay. Pak Henry asked, any changing in the city after COVID-19 strikes? I think this topic, a lot of people are asking this kind of question, and then it is a good question, but the answer is very, very hard to find. And what we can say now, some aspect where people are considering is, for example, first one, density. Okay, the density of the urban planning, the design. Okay, should it be go to high density or low density development? Okay, because previously we are saying that to avoid urban sprawl, we need to go vertically. That's why you have those kind of transport oriented design development. Okay, where the people are encouraged to live in high-rise building. Okay, and those kind of 5 minutes cities concept, 5 minutes walking cities concept, and so on and so forth, actually encouraging high density kind of urban planning. But is that so, and is that applicable? If the density is high, then the rate for the COVID-19 to spread is high also. So could it be the density is low, but people are less traveling? Actually, this is a good scenario now, like what actually Pak Dita was presenting just now, where the environment, the air, the water, and even the wild creatures, the birds, the fish, I think they are more happy than us. Every day, every morning, I hear a lot of birds are chirping outside, even the squirrels are running here and there. That never before when you see in your I mean your housing area. I do not know how is your housing area. That is happening in my housing area. So the air quality in Kuala Lumpur is also improving. There are proof that the quality is improving, the air quality is improving. Okay, so what is so wrong about COVID-19? We have to think it dialectically. Okay, something good is happening, whether you want to accept it or not. Okay, so you have to accept it. First, think of the density planning. Second is the reality that work from home. And the reality now is everyone, like we are doing a seminar at home. So that is a reality. And to have a work from home, that actually encourage social relationship among the family members. Don't you agree? Okay. So actually, we are towards the better direction where social needs is more prioritized than economic needs in the current situation. Like for example, we are forcing to stay at home. And then when we stay at home, we have better relationship with for example, with my wife, my kids, correct? Then we travel to other places and work, and then come back in the traffic jam for hours and reach home with tiring mind and want to sleep, and without less communication with the family members. So what we are experiencing now, the everyday life as coined by Labrev, is actually important. That it is good condition now. You see, first, lower density. Doesn't don't you imagine that you live in a house where the land density is low? Okay, second, then when you work at home, you have better relationship with your family members. Doesn't that what you want in your life, to have a better family relationship than a lot of money, correct? So what is actually and the other point is for environment impact. You see, the creatures like the bird, the fish are more happy than man now. That is actually their rights to claim, to have the place where they can fly freely. They can have their place under this COVID-19 without the disturbance of human traffic. Okay, so when talk about the rights to the city, actually, in my conception, should be more than human, should be including the living things. Like I see there's an example in which country in Europe, I cannot remember. They are building a bridge across the highway. Correct. In what country already? Netherlands. Netherlands. Yeah. Because a lot of animals, I do not know what kind of animal, cow or what, because they die when they cross the highway. But that kind of thing, it's actually they have their rights. What I mean, the living things have their rights, but whether we care for them or not. And during this economic time, it's a good time for us to rethink human rights together with the living things right. And then it is the social needs now is more prioritized than economic needs. That is a good start actually. We should continue on this condition and plan more low density development and look at the bright side of the working from home reality. Okay, that is what I think. Thank you.
Okay. Prince out in the chat box wrote New Zealand, and I believe he was referring to the answer for the first question from Mr. Ari about the cities that has tackled the pandemic. Because in my as far as I am concerned, New Zealand is one of the country that has stopped the pandemic in the country. The last community spread of the COVID-19 in New Zealand was recorded on November 2020, and there hasn't been any more community spread of the COVID-19 in New Zealand. And let's move to the third question from Pak Fajri. Would the human behavior will permanently change on how people use space and navigate the city? Or the change will only be following policies and precautions due to the pandemic? Very difficult question. Maybe Mr. Lim or Padita want to answer first.
Sila Pak Lim dulu.
Human behavior dia semua dikawal oleh ketakutan, because of what, greed that drives the human behavior towards destruction. What I mean, so you mean would the human behavior will permanently change on how people use space and navigate the city? Yeah, there will be a change. Like for example, what you are doing now is webinar in front of the computer. That is a change of behavior already. Okay, and COVID-19 will not disappear in I think 5 to 7 years. It will be continuously go on in this in this decade, I think. So the behavior will be totally changed, but it must be changed for the good, for the public goods. Okay, not for the private benefits. And those policy must also continue. I think the policy is a good point here. The policy now should be continue to uphold the social needs of the people. Okay, and that is important, and the environmental needs. Okay. And I think nobody wants to go back to a life where you stuck in the traffic for hours, go to office, back to office when hour, correct? And what for? We go to work, stuck in the traffic 1 day, 2 hours. Imagine how many hours you stuck in the traffic, correct? So isn't it better to work from home? But people say work from home is not a good solution. So what is the better solution? So the policy must continue to uphold the social needs of the people. Okay, I think that is important. And then they said if you stay long in the home, the more social problem will increase. Let's say the Down syndrome. What do you feel down? You feel not happy because people need to communicate. But that kind of problem can be solved. Like when I talk to you all in front of the computer here, I still feel happy. I feel my knowledge is released. Not even better. I can release to a friend in Indonesia, like you all, like Pak Lupi, Pak Dita, and even more in Germany. That is what I cannot imagine if there is no COVID. Thanks to COVID, actually. Yeah. Sampai Pak Dita lah. Sila.
Yeah, I think whether we like it or not, the behavior of the people are changed, and I think more and more people has been changing their mindset of living the new atmosphere of COVID, post COVID-19, and people are more cleaner now. They are wash their hands but also at the same time, I believe that people are also have the people who works in the dirty places, for example, they have built their antibody, I believe, to tackle any worse virus that come to their body. But when it comes to herd immunity, I think the importance of having healthy food, access to sunlight to get the vitamins, and also fresh air are factors that also take an important role for people to get healthy, to to avoid the virus coming in, or the recovery from, or get recovered from the COVID-19. So again, I feel like being happy and also being clean are the factors that are the level of cleanliness basically has changed, and I think that's a good thing, to get from this pandemic, the good positive things that we could learn and get from. Other than that, I think it's uh, uh, the manner of meeting to each other. We have to get the distance, and to have all the places clean, maintained, uh, especially public places like bus terminals, and train stations, or even the public transportations. I think it's very important for us to create even more livable cities in the future. I think.
Okay. Pak Bimo, you wrote something in the chat box in the emergency situation RTV. Do you want to elaborate about that?
Yeah. Can I ask directly, maybe?
Yes,
Is it
please.
possible? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to ask, actually relate to centrality. In some case, the centrality is very important in the emergency situation, right? But in the other side, I have question: is there any alternative from that? In many cases, in many countries, they try also to involve the people by inviting them to discuss in the online, right? But I wonder if there are any other solutions. My question is to Pak Lim and Pak Dita. Thank you.
Yeah, let me try to answer Pak Bimo's question. As I mentioned, participation is not to infringe, tidak untuk mendesak, bukan untuk mendesak centrality of the power. I mean, who is holding the power is actually who is in the government. But we are not going to infringe their power. But we must shift our focus to advocate for the needy, for those in help. They need help. So it is very important not to simply follow the stream when we must do something very radical in terms of participation. No, I don't think so. So in participation, we must know how to bring up our idea to help those in need, and then bring their voices to the center of power. We must stand alone. I mean, whoever in the government, let's say you are the government, of course you want people to stand along with you, correct? So whoever in the government, we must try to stand along, not against, not against. That is my idea. So to stand along, but we must stay in the centrality also. But it's not in the centrality to infringe their power, okay? But it's a centrality to bring together other people's voices together, to in front of their face, and so that they can provide funding, they can provide money for projects for those people in need. That is important. That is, I think, the gist of participation which I'm talking tonight. Don't get me wrong, if you are going to against the government, no, I don't think that is a good way. Yeah, Dita, please.
Yeah. My answer probably the same, close by the answer of Dr. Lim. I think that the local government, from the lower level of the government, the airway, the system, the kelurahan, yeah, and also all the major the mayor and then also the bupati or the governor has to be sensitive to their municipality problems. So every municipality has their own problems. They different problems. So I think that's why centrality in terms of policy might be good to have to have the superior policy to control, but every head of the municipality has to have their own control or measurement, basically the different parameter to deal with the pandemic. Why I think is important to do so, because of the every region has their own uniqueness, and they have the density, the infrastructure, uh, the socio-cultural state of the people are different. It means that every head of the region of the municipality has to be sensitive and to be able to control or to manage their area. And this is important for the financial resilience of the country in the bigger picture. And I believe when it comes to that, the head of the region has to be has to look down and to be able to get the participation of the communities to deal with the pandemic. Not only declare the policy that the regulation has to be like this, has to be like that, but there's no enforcement or advice or the approach, the soft approach in dealing with the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lim and Pak Dita. Unfortunately, it's already 9 p.m. in Jakarta and 10 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur, so we need to conclude this seminar. Dr. Lim, do you have any concluding statement for this seminar?
Okay, that is what I said just now. Do not get me wrong. If I said participation is to infringe the centrality of the power, no. So a good participation, meaning that we have to take care the needs of all the social needs groups. More importantly is the vulnerable groups. You know what I mean? The OKU, the disabled people, for example, and the single mother, for example, and the migrants, immigrants. Okay, a lot of them you have to take care, but that is not easy. That's why we need to find better modes to participate, whether physically or online. Okay, that is what we are researching now. And this Rise to the City, there is a misconception that I concluded tonight. First, the concept itself has the potential to infringe the centrality of power. That is, we have to make clear when you talk about citizen of participation. Okay. Second is that we have to research and provide more evidence on the citizens' contribution on co-creating the cities together with the government. Okay, around the world, we have to provide more and more evidence. So I make more people, make the grassroots more active and co-creating together with the government. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lim. And Pak Dita, please.
Yeah, from me, I think there are two statements that or something that I could put as remarks on this presentation, that we as planners, urban designers, or architects have to consider that new model of planning and designing the urban spaces, and the shifted use, the shifted or meanwhile temporary uses are also has to put into consideration within the terms of the immediate terms, medium, and also longer term. It means that the space that we design or plan should have the feasibility of changing within times. That's the first one, and the second one would be, I believe that the sensitivity of people who sees economic resilience, and also the importance of access to nature are more and more better than before. So it means that people are aware of being in nature. They're aware of the importance of getting access to the nature, but at the same time, they also think about how they can balance the nature with the financial or the economic resilience. Having the urban farm in every house, they do hydroponic and planting food. To have the food bank, for example, for their neighbors, are also aspects that could be very, very useful in tackling the pandemic. And I believe this would actually build the neighborhood stronger, and the communities will become stronger than ever. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dita. So this will be the end of our seminar tonight and this afternoon. Personally, it has been a very great and fruitful seminar for me. I hope we can meet again at the next collaborative events. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam dan selamat siang.
Ya, terima kasih semua.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Universitas Indonesia. Pak Henry, ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
I will take a picture. If could you please turn on all the video, all the participants.
Sadar.
Take a picture. Sudah?
Sudah.
Belum semua ya? Sudah semua. Ada yang sudah pergi juga.
Ya.
Okay. One more. Sebentar. Ada yang mau keluar lagi? Ada yang mau muncul lagi? Sudah tidak ada ya? One more. Let me take another picture. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Makasih semua. Yuk.
Thank you semua.
Terima kasih.
Sukses Mas Dita.
Terima
Mas
kasih
Bimo.
semuanya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih Lim. Pak Lutfi hebat.
Ya, thank you.
Mas Heri.
Pak Sri, ya.
Pak Asri.
Nah, Miss Tika, Miss Mifka. Oke, itu saja. Kasih Bimo. Kasih banyak-banyak.